Hello, people of YouTube. This is Gray's Guitars. I am Steve Gray. Thank you for watching. Today we are talking about why Slash decided to work with Magnatone. Keep in mind, he is still working with Marshall, but when you think Slash, you think Guns N' Roses or possibly Velvet Revolver, you think a Gibson Les Paul and a Marshall stack. That is what you think. Slash is probably one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that I love the Gibson Les Paul. When I first started playing, a buddy introduced me to the Slash Guns N' Roses, and I was just like, wow, that guy looks really cool. Got the sunglasses, the top hat, that really cool guitar, and I have been in love with the Gibson Les Paul and just single cuts in general ever since. But this is more about Magnatone. So let's see why Slash has decided to reach out to Magnatone to get an additional signature amp. There were things I wanted to achieve that I wasn't really getting out of those amps. Why Slash worked with Magnatone and a signature amp after 30 years of playing Marshall stacks. The Guns N' Roses Guitar Hero made headlines back in 2023 when he announced he'd be partnering with Magnatone on a signature amp. Yup, everybody jumped the gun and said he was dropping Marshall. Has not dropped Marshall. Still affiliated with Marshall, but he is one of those people that are big enough to have two. And if you look at like Metallica, they are both signed with Gibson and ESP. Yet again, big enough to have two. Slash has opened up about his high-profile collaboration with Magnatone after the Guns N' Roses electric guitar Hero seemed to switch his tried and trusted Marshalls for a signature amp built by the boutique guitar amp designer. Keep in mind, boutique in this sense means expensive, like very expensive. I think his amps, like if you wanted to get the head and the cab, it was pushing $10,000. So expensive. This is not cheap. In late 2023, Slash took the guitar gear world by surprise when he announced he was working with Magnatone on a signature amp after spending 30 years playing Marshalls. A few days after the news broke, Marshall set the record straight by affirming that Slash would still play his stacks. The new partnership with Magnatone, which resulted in the SL100, would run alongside its existing collaboration with Marshall. Now Slash has spoken out about the move, which he says came about after he began to feel disillusioned with the sound of his Marshall and other existing amps. Speaking in a new interview with Magnatone, Slash explains, pretty much made my home with Marshall for a lot of years, and then over time I started to get, I don't know what's the best word for it, a little disillusioned with maybe the consistency of my sound with Marshall or whatever it was. There were things that I wanted to achieve that I wasn't really getting out of those amps, he continued. And then I played a Magnatone one time just by chance. Accidentally happening upon a Magnatone turned out to be a huge light bulb moment for Slash, who at the time was looking for a way to revigorate his sound in the lead-ups to his blues solo record, Orgy of the Damned. I think Richard Fortus gave it to me, he continues. I mean, I went to go do this blues record a couple years ago. I wasn't looking for a wall of sound for the blues record. I wanted something that was more like a combo, 50 watt or less type of deal. So I pulled out all these old combos I had and I saw the Magnatone, and I was familiar with them because Billy Gibbons was using them. I ended up using it for the whole process. Out of everything that I had, I kept going back to that amp, and then when we went to the studio, I did a whole record with that amp. I started to get less and less of what I was expecting out of the gear I was using, he notes, but then I stumbled upon the Magnatone side OF. I don't know if I'm allowed a swear word or not. I'm not sure. Whatever. Moving on. It wasn't just a studio thing either, Slash reveals, so he took his 50-watt Magnatone combos on tour with Guns N' Roses and used them in place of his previous Marshall rig. Going out with Guns N' Roses a couple years ago, I took my 50-watt Magnatone combos and replaced the Marshalls on that tour for the entire tour, and it worked great. In other news, Marty Schwartz recently recalled the time he bumped into the GNR icon and revealed that Slash had watched his tuition videos in the lead up to the blues record that featured his now prized Magnatone combos. So I don't know if you can even get one of these right now. Let's go ahead and take a look. But yeah, hand-wired, all that good stuff, products. Slash signature collection, we'll do that. I would like to learn more. Are they going to give me information? I have no idea. Yep, let's just get out of this because it doesn't seem like they want to tell me a price. And let's see, yeah, $10,000. Yeah, this is in stock, so just the head. Blackout edition is $4,000. The cabinet is $2,300. So $7,300 if you want the cab and the speakers. I don't know what speakers. I feel like I knew this before, but I have no idea what speakers they're actually using. Is it their own? 4 selection of vintage 30 speakers. Okay, so yeah, honestly, I think I would sit the cab out. I have a 2x12 that has vintage 30s, and it didn't cost me $2,300. Same speaker, probably different, a little bit different woods, but plywood, is what it is. Cheaper end, that was like $300. It wasn't a Harley Benton. It's actually a stage right mono price. Don't even know if they make them anymore, but I wanted something with vintage 30s and got it. But yeah, no, when you've been playing the same thing for 30 years, that can get stale, and I understand that, and I'm like that with guitars more so than I am amps. I've been playing a PV6505 Plus, then I got the Carbon 2, the MTS 3200, which is very Marshall-esque sounding. I got a Carbon 4x12, 400 watt, and then I also have the vintage 30s as well. And then I got a decent amount of pedals to change the sound. I also have I got a Roland Microcube recently, if you feel like watching that video. Gives me a bunch of different sounds too, but when you're using the same thing day after day after day, Les Paul Marshall, Les Paul Marshall, Les Paul Marshall, sometimes you want something different. Sometimes you want a little bit of a different sound. So in his case, instead of picking up a different guitar, he decided to pick up a different amp, and there's nothing wrong with that. Slash is, he's top tier. He's definitely on the old guitar god list, if you will. He'll probably always be there. And honestly, I feel like he is the most recent person to get people to pick up the Gibson Les Paul. Gibson is one of those brands, high on legacy. And you might even say that about Marshall, too. He might be one of the main reasons people picked up Marshall. And now that, you're talking Guns N' Roses is over 30 years old. Slash is in his 50s. He's not old, but he's not young either. And ultimately, a lot of people are going different directions, and then we see he switches to Magnatone, and then it's like, well, most people aren't going to be able to afford that. Most people, I think, would rather have his signature Gibson Les Paul over his signature amp. I think his signature Marshall still go for a decent chunk of change, but I think it's just minor tweaks. You don't have to get that specific one. Some people really, really want it. My first Les Paul was similar to one of his. It's like a Cherry Sunburst Epiphone Les Paul 100. That was the first Les Paul I owned. Some people don't say Epiphone's a real Les Paul, but it says Les Paul on the headstock, so haha, if you will. Then I had Epiphone Les Paul Gothic. Actually, I had 2 of them. I sold one of them. Actually, I sold both of them, I think. Then I had an Epiphone Les Paul Standard, which I still have, with the Seymour Duncans. Then I had a Gibson Les Paul Studio, Gibson Les Paul Standard, Gibson Les Paul Custom, another Gibson Les Paul Studio that I recently sold, because do I need 3 guitars with the same exact pickup combination in them? No, I do not. Didn't even realize that till after I bought the thing. I was actually kind of disappointed. I was like, I thought the Standard was supposed to have burst bookers. And that particular year that I bought the Standard, it had the 490R, 498T set. That's in like 496R, 498T set. That's in like everything. Slash has his own pickups. I think he has his own set of Seymour Duncans, but I think in more recent years, he also has like a specific set for Gibson as well. So different manufacturers can make the same pickup, if you will. But I get it. I get switching it. I get wanting a different tone, I've been tone chasing for years, and I still don't practice enough to justify it. I'm perfectly fine plugging in my Squire that I got for free and put a couple bucks in, put a loaded pickguard in. I think it sounds great through a tube amp. Because sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you just need a cheap tube amp. That can make any guitar sound fantastic. But solid states are good too. Sometimes you just need a good amp. Let's be honest. You just need a good amp, whether that be solid state or tube. And Slash found something different. Power to him. I look forward to hopefully seeing him again. Maybe if Guns N' Roses comes back. I got lucky. I got to see him once. I was in the boonies watching them, but still got to see him in person. Thought that was pretty cool. But let me know your thoughts down below on the switch to Magnatone. Let me know if you're chasing the dragon too, if you will, chasing the tone dragon, and you keep buying different guitars and different amps and just different gear in general, hoping to find that little bit of magic, as most of us are, and then we realize that we go back to what we had originally, and it sounded great the entire time. Till next time, subscribe, notification bell, like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and as always, have a good one.